Ladies and gentlemen, so I'm starting a new series where I'll be taking a look at all 30 NBA teams and evaluating their offseason and trying to give viewers an understanding of how I think they'll perform this season. So the first team we'll be taking a look at today is the Atlanta Hawks. And the Hawks had a very average season last year. They were a 500 basketball team. They finished seventh in the Eastern Conference, and they played the Miami Heat in the play-in tournament. Um, they were up big in that game, only for the Heat to come back. The Hawks held on to win. In hindsight, if you look at it, that was a huge win because the Miami Heat ended up playing in the NBA Finals. But at that moment, it was considered a good win. Something that was needed. But that one game standalone um, was probably the highlight, of their playoff run because in the first round they played the Boston Celtics, and although they took them to 6 games, they never really threatened Boston. So in many ways, the season was considered a disappointment because that was the second straight year they got knocked out in the first round. Um, a couple years prior to that, they played in the Eastern Conference Finals, so a lot of fans were disappointed, with the performance of the Atlanta Hawks. And I think one thing um, that Hawks fans could be excited for is the fact that Quinn Snyder is the head coach, and he'll get a chance to lead the team, for his first full season. So he came in February after Nate McMillan was fired, and Joe Prunty was the custodian head coach for a couple games. And Quinn Snyder was a fantastic coach with the Utah Jazz. Was there for about like 7, 8 years, I think, and led them to the playoffs almost every season, winning 50 games multiple times, but just not being able to lead the team um, to any postseason success. And with some of the shifts the team was making, he ultimately decided that he wanted to step down, and it wasn't long that he had to wait to get a good coaching opportunity, which he has now in Atlanta. Um, so let's take a look at some of the moves the Hawks made and how they're trying to combat a disappointing season. So first of all, in the first round, they drafted Kobe Buffkin, a guard from Michigan, who played 2 seasons. Last year, Kobe really impressed. I think averaged about 13, 14 points, a few assists, uh, and I think he has the mold of a very good rotational NBA player. The problem is that he's going to be stuck behind star guards Deontay Murray as well as Trey Young. So first year, I don't think he's really going to make a big impact for the basketball team. Next, they drafted Seth Lundy in the second round, who was a 4-year player from Penn State. They also signed him to a two-way deal, so that indicates that he's probably not going to play much, if at all. And then finally, they acquired the draft rights to Muhammad Guy from Northwestern, and he is a very good defensive player as well as he showed that he could be very good on offense. Um, it remains to be seen, what kind of role he'll have, but I think he could be one of the guys, of this draft class that can carve out a few rotational minutes, especially a guy with a big body that could really chip in. But then, in terms of other moves they made, the Hawks made a very significant trade, sending out John Collins to the Utah Jazz. And, the return was really disappointing. They acquired Rudy Gay and some draft capital. Rudy Gay, as many of us know, is well past his prime. He's not a guy that really contributes, but this deal was made more with the salary cap in mind. Landry Fields, who's the GM of the basketball team, had a mandate of sorts from ownership to get under the luxury tax, and the Jazz, being a team, that had cap space, was able to absorb John Collins' contract completely, and that helps Atlanta get out of luxury tax and not paying repeaters tax, and it saves them financially a lot of money. But on the basketball court, it really hurts because John was a really good player. The Hawks weren't able to utilize him in the best way, but I think it's a big loss from that standpoint. And then ultimately, they were able to trade Rudy Gay and they acquired Patty Mills in a series of transactions. Patty, similar to Rudy Gay, he's um, closer to the end of his career than the starting. He's a good clubhouse leader. He's a veteran. He can still shoot the three ball pretty well, but he's a smaller guy, and I don't think he's going to play all that much this year. But his off court impact may be much bigger than what he can bring, to the basketball court every night. And then the Hawks made a very underrated move where they re-signed, or where they gave Dejounte Murray a contract extension, 4 years and $114 million. Very fair deal for both sides. Dejounte Murray gets a lot of financial um, flexibility, I would say, where he has that assurance. He's locked up and he has all that guaranteed money, and the Hawks get a very high level player who is maybe slightly below All-Star level for less than $30 million, which in this NBA is really a steal in my opinion. Um, but then looking at some of the moves, in the off season, trying to understand who are some key players, I really wanted to put a highlight on DeAndre Hunter, who's played with the Hawks now I think about 3 years, coming into year 4. He's been a good player, but in my opinion has never been great. And that's no knock on him. He's averaged 15 points a year. That's been basically his high, and that he has the making of a guy that can be really good, a two-way guy really, offense and defense. But I think he really needs to step up this year. With the loss of John Collins, he's going to have an opportunity to really take his game to the next level. And I think he really needs to be a guy that can average 18 to 20 points a night and bring that intensity really on both ends of the floor. And then another guy that I think will be really important is Onyeka Okongwu. So Okongwu has been a guy that's impressed in limited minutes. He's played about 20 minutes a night, and he's shown that he can be a really good player. But unfortunately for him, he was stuck behind John Collins, who's now gone. But then, there's also Clint Capella, who's playing a lot of minutes, and Onyeka hasn't really gotten that chance. But I do think this is going to be the year where he gets a chance to play mid 20s, lower 30s. Not sure how that's going to work exactly, because I'm not sure you play Okongwu with Capella all that much. But I think Quinn Snyder has to find a way to use Okongwu, because I think he's one of their best defensive players, and offensively he's shown that he can really continue to improve. So they need to find a way to give him more minutes. But truthfully, this team is driven by the star backcourt pairing of Dejounte Murray and Trae Young. These two guys have to play excellent basketball in my opinion, and for a lot of stretches they have. With Trae Young, his counting stats have always been up there. I think he's averaged over 25 points per game basically every year except his rookie year. So he's shown that he can be very prolific on the offensive end. The issue is with his efficiency, shooting lower 40% from the field and 33% from threes. It's not going to cut it anymore. He's an excellent playmaker. He even averaged double-double last year, but coupled with low efficiency and not being a good defender is not a great recipe for him. So he really needs to improve his efficiency. And then Dejounte Murray, he statistically might have had the most efficient year of his career. He shot the ball really well, and he still was playmaking, scoring, very good rebounder for a guard. But I think the Hawks really need to entrust him more. They need to put the ball in his hands more. That'll take some pressure off Trae Young, and will allow Trae to play off the ball more, and hopefully will improve his efficiency. But overall, this team has the look of a very good offensive team, but defensively, I don't think they've made enough moves to really improve that side of the basketball. And because of that, I think, outside of making major moves where they look to trade the expiring contract of Bogdan Bogdanovic or even Sadiq Bey, or, whether they decide to move on from Clint Capella, I don't know if they have enough firepower to, replicate the success that they had a few years ago when they made the conference finals. I think they'll probably end up being a team in the playing tournament again, and they won't have a deep playoff run. So that's just my opinion. I appreciate everyone watching. If you made it to this point, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much.